to take the opportunity to share with you a short video in support of my work, Ancient Navigators, Phoenician Colony of Atlantis. The greatest question that the world wishes to be answered about Atlantis is inevitably, if it was a real place, then where exactly should we be looking? This question must also be accompanied by all of the recorded facts which Plato gives us through Solon of Greece and the Egyptian priests, by which he was given the first original account of Atlantis. We must first establish the general region based on the key details we are given in the account. There were said to have been wild elephants in the region of Atlantis. Morocco was known to have once had elephants as late as the Roman Empire, who had used them for various entertainment purposes. They have also fortunately left us with mosaics showing this proof, which is still visible at ancient Roman city sites and within museums today. The capital city and the plain of Atlantis were said to have been surrounded by great mountains. The name Atlantis can clearly be identified with the name of the Greek god Atlas, who in the mythology was identified with the ends of the known world. Imposing mountains in the farthest known west to the ancient Greeks still bear the name today as the Atlas Mountains of Morocco, overlooking the Atlantic Ocean. The empire was said to have been situated beyond the Pillars of Hercules. This location is generally agreed to be located at the Strait of Gibraltar, exiting the Mediterranean Sea and into the Atlantic Ocean, with Spain to the north and Morocco to the south. It is important to note that Plato specifically writes in the Atlantis account that there is a clear difference between the smaller Mediterranean Sea and the true ocean. As a seafaring civilization, Atlantis would have been required to be located by the coast, with ports suitable for a fleet of ships. The entire land of Atlantis was stated to have been in a very hospitable climate, allowing for not one but 2 yearly harvests. This land would have also been appropriate for both horses and bulls, as in the details of the account relate. Atlantis would have been able to reach rich sources of metals ore, which was key to their great wealth. The once grand capital city of Atlantis had used white, black, and yellow colored stone. Such stone combinations would also be an indicator of the region we should expect to find Atlantis. As Plato's account claims that Atlantis held control over the entire western half of the Mediterranean Sea, up to the land later associated with ancient Tyrrhenia, now western Italy, they must have been within reasonable sailing distance of it. The capital city would have been situated on the coast and at the center of a large rectangular plain surrounded by a mountain range. There are still a few important notes of interpretation and correction to consider before we could hone in on a location for the lost empire of Atlantis. The first of these is the question of, was Atlantis in fact an island? Was this rather a misinterpretation of the records, translating that of a peninsula or a section of landmass reaching out towards the sea? Atlantis must also be rationalized in terms of its recorded destruction and what this landmass was subjected to. We are told that the entire civilization was quickly overcome by tremendous earthquakes and a catastrophic flood. A major earthquake capable of large-scale destruction, followed by what could have been a massive tsunami, would have left the land completely flooded. Later, when the waters had receded from the flood, the land would have then been unusable and the destruction too great to consider rebuilding from any of the survivors. If we fast forward well over 3,000 years, the visible landscape would have changed a great deal. What is essential, however, is for the plain and its surrounding mountains upon which the original capital city was built to be identifiable. With the issue of an entire mountain range not being geologically possible of having been physically sunk beneath the waves, we must then now consider with certainty that these mountains can be found in our present times. When the land of Atlantis was subjected to these great forces of nature, there would have been an enormous amount of sediment and silt formed along the coastline and in any connecting ship canal systems. Deeply covered by layers of various materials, the buried capital city would lie completely undetected by later people. Add in the fact that thousands of years have passed, and that the once great buildings and palaces were violently shaken by earthquakes, most of the architecture would have been leveled. As ancient Troy was lost buried under a hill, Atlantis was built on a flat plain, making it even more vulnerable to soil accumulating on top of the ruins over time. When the units are adjusted from stadia to the more reasonable unit of plethron, the overall plain and capital city with its canal system becomes fully comparable to other great Bronze Age cities. The dense section of capital city would be roughly 1 kilometer in diameter and 1.5 kilometers from the sea, considering any possible alterations to the coastline during the catastrophe and since that time. The Great Fertile Plain, which encompassed the entire countryside outside of the capital city, would have been roughly 90 by 60 kilometers. Using the plethron as an alternative, it delivers an incredible match for a plain of just such a size off the Atlantic coast of modern-day Morocco. Positioned roughly 100 kilometers southwest of the famous city of Casablanca, this formerly flooded plain lies unsuspiciously between the cities of Safi and El Jadida. This coastline of Morocco was also well within the reach of Bronze Age sea navigators, and much more realistic than many other locations proposed over the years. It is clear from the satellite views on our modern maps that this rectangular plain still retains some land that is suitable for rich agriculture. This geographical area of irrigated fields is called the Ducala. It is here that the ancient land surrounding the once mighty capital of Atlantis was located. With the plain established, we could comfortably position the capital city at the midway point of the plain, as Plato once described. Not only do we have the grand capital city to uncover, but Plato's account specifies that there were 9 other cities, of unknown sizes, being part of this whole Atlantean empire. As this proposal has it above water today, we could begin the search with non-invasive technologies, such as ground-penetrating radar and LiDAR, in order to see shapes and structures which have completely eluded us for many millennia. Assuming a heavy deposit of clay and sea debris has covered the region, slightly more invasive approaches, such as seismic scanning and core drilling, could be done if other technologies prove firm evidence of something deeply buried. There will likely never be a historical discovery capable of rivaling that of long-lost Atlantis. Unlike many other ancient sites, most of the precious treasures will still be there to be uncovered. The capital city will likely be similar to ancient Pompeii near Rome, with the exception of far more wealth and architecture to be excavated. One last note that has to be made is that, unlike many other theories, this location can actually be put to the test. We now simply have to have the desire to look.